WWE have released over 100 wrestlers since 2020 up until now, and some of these releases have been huge names. Nobody is safe from getting fired from WWE, and AEW have picked up a lot of these releases. Right now, AEW is the cool place to be, so some WWE wrestlers may even try to force their way out of WWE by letting their contracts run out, or some WWE wrestlers may even request their releases from their contracts. Literally anything could happen, and 2022 is around the corner, so here are 10 WWE wrestlers who could join AEW in 2022. And at number 10, we have Kevin Owens. Recently, Kevin Owens sent out this cryptic tweet in which he sent out the coordinates to the famous monument, Mount Rushmore in South Dakota, and then he changed his Twitter location to almost there. This tweet has since been deleted, and this is most likely a reference to the faction Mount Rushmore that Kevin Owens was a part of with Adam Cole and the Young Bucks. This faction primarily operated in Pro Wrestling Guerrilla between 2013 and 2014, and the group ended because Kevin Owens left WWE in 2014, so Kevin Owens might be looking at a way back to Mount Rushmore to tie up some loose ends. And Kevin Owens' WWE contract is set to expire in January of 2022, so we could see a return of Kevin Steen in AEW very soon. And at number 9, we have Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy's current booking in WWE has been very poor to say the least, as he's playing the role of putting over younger talent. So majority of the time he takes a lot of losses. And while there's nothing wrong with older talent putting over younger talent, the way WWE has made Jeff Hardy do this has been very disappointing. Seeing a former WWE champion who has a huge fan base of people who adore him chasing after the 24/7 title is really upsetting because he can be utilized in a much better fashion. Jeff Hardy signed a new contract in 2020 that reportedly runs out at the end of 2022, so Jeff Hardy might be looking at one last run in AEW, either a singles run or a tag team run with his brother Matt Hardy. The Hardy Boys have won so many championships in wrestling, and it would be great to see them win the AEW World Tag Team Championships, as it would cement their legacy as one of the greatest tag teams of all time. So Jeff Hardy could realistically be All Elite. And at number 8, we have Finn Balor. Finn Balor's run in WWE has had a lot of highs and lows. Finn Balor was the inaugural Universal Champion, but right after he won the Universal Championship, he had to relinquish it because he sustained a shoulder injury, and ever since then, things were never the same, as he hasn't really been pushed on the main roster in the same capacity as leading up to when he won the Universal Championship. Despite this though, he won the NXT Championship recently and was in a main event level feud with Roman Reigns. But Finn Balor has a lot of history with the Elite, as he was a founding member of the Bullet Club and was the Bullet Club's first ever leader, and the Young Bucks were in the group while he was the leader. So there is a lot of storytelling possibilities if he were to jump ship to AEW. There is no word on when Finn Balor's contract expires, but he has expressed in the past that he loves the idea of the Forbidden Door and being able to work in many different countries. So Finn Balor may just let his contract run out, or he may just get released either voluntarily or involuntarily. And the return of Prince Devitt in AEW would be a huge deal. And at number 7, we have Sasha Banks. Sasha Banks has had a very successful WWE run, but despite this, she has expressed in the past that she was very close to leaving WWE due to mental health issues and falling out of love with wrestling after her WrestleMania 35 loss, and she took a hiatus from wrestling for a few months afterwards. And ever since she returned from her WrestleMania 35 hiatus, she's been back on her game, and she even main evented night 1 of WrestleMania 37. But in the last 6 months since WrestleMania 37, she has taken 2 hiatuses from WWE for reasons only known to her, and the fact that she's taken time away from the ring could put her at risk for getting released, as seen with Bray Wyatt, who got released when he was on hiatus. Even though he was one of WWE's biggest stars and top merch sellers, they still let him go, and this just shows that nobody is safe in WWE, and Sasha Banks is no exception. Sasha Banks may even ask for her release, as she's one of those wrestlers who you can tell just deeply loves the art of professional wrestling, and she would thrive in a professional wrestling based environment like AEW. And Mercedes Varnado would be a huge addition to the AEW women's division, as she is one of WWE's biggest stars and is a massive TV draw. And at number 6, we have Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn's main roster run in WWE has been quite underwhelming in comparison to his run in NXT. On the main roster, he's never really quite cracked the main event scene, and he could be looking to jump ship to AEW to get a fresh start, seeing that his contract is going to be up by the end of 2021. He clearly has an interest in AEW, as seen when he mentioned AEW live on WWE Raw, in which he got into a lot of trouble for backstage. And throughout his career, he's always been in similar places as one of his real life best friends, Kevin Steen. And with both of their deals up soon, Ramy Sabai could realistically be in AEW in 2022. And his great in-ring work and his promo skills could be a great addition to AEW. And at number 5, we have the phenomenal AJ Styles. AJ Styles is one of WWE's biggest stars and one of the best wrestlers they have on their roster. But his recent booking in WWE hasn't been the best as it could be, as he's a main event level talent who's been in a tag team with Omos for way too long. And this could see him join AEW. In 2019, when AEW was rearing its head into the wrestling world, AJ Styles' deal was almost up and he confirmed that there were talks for him to join AEW, but instead he chose to sign with WWE. AJ Styles clearly has interest in AEW, as seen on his Twitch stream, of which WWE made him deactivate his account. When somebody asked him about AEW, he said never say never. And this is very telling, especially considering that reportedly his contract is expiring at the tail end of 2022. AJ Styles also has a lot of history with the Elite, as he was the second ever Bullet Club leader, and he was kicked out of the Bullet Club at the hands of the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. So the storytelling possibilities if he was in AEW would quite honestly be endless. And also seeing that he's 44 and time is running out on the biological clock, he may want to tie up some loose ends in AEW before he retires, and who knows, maybe even become the first ever Grand Slam world champion in wrestling. And at number 4, we have Shayna Baszler. When Shayna Baszler went up to the main roster, hopes were high that she was going to be the next big thing in the main roster women's division in WWE, seeing that she was huge in NXT and she had 2 dominant reigns as NXT Women's Champion, where she was booked like a beast. But ever since she joined the main roster, she hasn't hit those same strides and levels. And time is not on her side, as Shayna Baszler is 41 years old, and Vince McMahon has a tendency to put wrestlers who are older on the chopping block to get released. So don't be surprised if Shayna Baszler gets released by WWE and joins AEW in 2022. She would be a great addition to the AEW women's division, and she could be the spark that truly legitimizes the women's division. And at number 3, we have Ricochet. Ricochet is one of those guys who had the whole wide world in front of them when he was in NXT, and then when they got to the main roster, the world came crashing down. And Ricochet has been insanely underutilized and has been lingering around the 24/7 title scene, which is very upsetting to see, especially for someone who's as talented as him. And if he were to get released, I don't think many people would be that surprised considering how things have gone on the main roster for him. Chris Jericho even stated on his podcast that Ricochet, along with Roman Reigns and Cesaro, are some WWE talent that he'd like to see in AEW. So if Ricochet were to become a free agent, AEW would most likely have interest in him. And King Ricochet or Prince Puma making a return in AEW would be massive because of his insane wrestling ability. And at number 2, we have Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar recently appeared in WWE after a 16-month hiatus, and he has reportedly signed an 8-match deal with WWE, of which the time frame is still definitively unknown. And depending on when he wrestles those 8 matches, he could be a free agent by the tail end of 2022 or sometime in 2023. Out of all the wrestlers on this list, Brock Lesnar to AEW is probably the longest shot because Brock Lesnar is an incredibly expensive acquisition with very little longevity. But you must remember that Tony Khan is part of a multi-billion-dollar family, and he literally has more money than Vince McMahon. So if he really wanted Brock Lesnar in AEW, he'd have the resources to do so, even if it's on a short-term basis. And Brock Lesnar to AEW would honestly just be insane. And at number 1, we have Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair is one of WWE's biggest stars, and she was part of the first women to main event WrestleMania. But as of late, she's been giving off signals that she's not happy and is frustrated in WWE, as seen in her recent shoot segment with Becky Lynch on SmackDown, in which she was unsatisfied with the whole swapping of titles ordeal, so she lashed out by throwing the title on the ring mat during the exchange, which was not the plan. She reportedly got into a backstage altercation with Becky Lynch and had to be escorted out of the building, and reportedly the locker room sided with Becky Lynch, and Charlotte Flair left Gorilla without talking to Vince McMahon to go support her boyfriend Andrade El Idolo in Orlando at AEW Dynamite. And this reportedly left Vince McMahon very very upset. And all of this could be an effort to get herself out of her contract, as reportedly people in her circle are pushing for her to get out of her WWE contract. And Andrade has stated in the past that he wants everybody in his circle, including Charlotte in AEW, and her father Ric Flair let Vince know of his dissatisfaction with her booking before he asked for his release. So clearly it seems like all the stars are aligning for Charlotte Flair to get released by WWE and potentially jump ship to AEW. She's done everything that she could possibly do in WWE, and she could really benefit from a fresh start in AEW, as Ashley Flair could be the one to take the AEW women's division to the very next level. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. But anyway, goodbye you jobbers.